and how do I tune in and how do I get my friends to tune in. What I want to be running is a thing called Wednesdays at 1, and you'll see me sort of putting this up on Facebook and Instagram. It's an easy way to remember when are we going live. Wednesdays at 1. And it'll be a 15 or 20 minute live. The recordings will always be available on Facebook and YouTube as well. But in terms of if you want to tune in live and be part of the conversation, absolutely Wednesdays at 1 we're going to be doing that. I'm also thinking of running Monday Mythbusters. I know that when it comes to health, especially metabolic health and nutrition and movement and a whole basic range of different things, there are so many myths out there. There are so many things where you sort of say, well, is that true? I've always heard that, but I don't know if I actually need to believe that. And so we're going to be running Monday's myths as well. If you've got any myths that you want me to investigate or tell you about in terms of is this a myth or is it truth, just leave a comment under this video or somewhere in the Project 21 group, and I will address that, and we'll be able to go, okay, what's myth, what's truth, what do we need to do with all of those things. That's going to be Monday Mythbusters. It may not be every Monday, but it's something to look out for. And then Wednesdays at 1, I'm hoping to do that every single week. To check in with you, to tell you about my journey, where it's going, what I'm up to, what I'm learning. And as I've said to a lot of you and people who are tuning in, this is my personal journey of metabolic health through 2021. Hence, it's called Project 21. If you want to join along and learn some things and glean some things and enter the conversation, I would love to have you come along as a way where you might be able to grow a little bit. It is my personal journey, and so for those who follow, brilliant. If you don't want to follow, that's okay. It's what I'm going to be doing as a way to help others, but to get plenty out of myself. I want to ask a question to you and leave an answer below in the comments. Do you need more energy? Do you need better sleep? Do you want better hormone regulation, less stress, or lost weight? Which of those 5? More energy, less stress, better sleep, better hormones, or less weight? The reason I ask that is these are the 5 biggest things that happen when we get our metabolic health under control. Metabolic health is not just a weight control thing. It's all of these things: stress, sleep, energy, hormones, and weight. All of these things come under metabolic health, and these are some of the outcomes of what Project 21 is going to deliver. I've been away, as a lot of you know, over the last few weeks. I haven't checked in, but I've learned a whole lot. January, if you remember, was Mindset Month. This is where I spent a lot of time talking about mindset and getting my own mindset in the right place, so as to make sure that this year-long journey is a journey of consistency for me. It's not this like, boom, did some things, fell away, lost consistency, or lost momentum, or lost interest, or got bored, or got discouraged, or whatever. It's much more about saying, how do we set a plan to get through this year with great consistency? And so January was great for that. One of the main things I learned, there's 2 big things. Firstly, sleep is crucial for me. I'm going to be talking a little bit later in this live about what biofeedback is, but I'm using a lot of things to give me feedback about how well I'm going. I go a lot better when I get good sleep, not just enough sleep. I'm a pretty high energy guy. A lot of you know that, and I can push through it and not really feel any effects. But under the surface, when I take readings and track things, I'm struggling a little bit, just being transparent there. And so I learned that sleep is critical. I knew it, but I learned it. I got to see the results of when I got great sleep and not so good as sleep. The other thing I learned is that we had a wedding. We celebrated a family wedding. We had some birthdays in January. We're coming out of Christmas. We like to cook. We like to gather around a table and share that with friends and family. I love to do the cooking. And what I found, I was eating a lot of red meat over January. Now, I love red meat, good lamb on the barbecue, or good fillet steaks, Scotch fillets and things like that. I love it. But my body doesn't love it. I found that the more red meat I ate, the heavier I got, the more bloated I got. Even though I was moving and exercising and doing a lot of the right things, I got heavier. And so here's the first learning for me, is that red meat is not brilliant for me. That may not be the case for you. But for me, red meat doesn't really agree that well. It doesn't mean I won't eat it. It's just that I'll be cautious of how much and how regularly I eat red meat. And so there's a huge learning. Sleep. The first one was sleep is actually, whilst I feel okay, my body is not processing things as well in terms of stress and in terms of how well everything's going. And the second one is red meat doesn't do so well for me. I'm a bit heavier, a bit more bloated, and feel a bit more sluggish. So a couple of big learnings. February is movement month. And by the way, if you're tuning in, and I'm hoping that it's all going live, it should be. If you're tuning in, I'm hoping to be able to pick up comments from you. So if you're there, just leave me a comment. If you're watching the replay, leave me a comment as well. I just want to make sure all of the tech is working properly and doing what it's supposed to do. February, January was mindset month. February is movement month. And so this month, I've really picked up the intensity of movement and exercise. My wife Leanne and I have been on our bikes plenty this last few weeks and really just doing not enormous rides, but half hour to an hour ride multiple times a week. And it's been brilliant. It's been brilliant to get moving and get going forwards. I know a lot of the time people are tracking steps and activity and things like that, and I think it's really, really good to do. But I want to talk to you about movement in the light of metabolic health. Now, I've got an Apple Watch here that I use to track a lot of things, and it gives me a lot of info. But I mentioned in one of the earlier lives that it's not just the amount of movement that you do, it's the intensity and the strain that it puts on you that counts. And so let's use this example. It's the same example I used a few weeks ago. If I was to do 10,000 steps in a day, my watch says, well done, you've done 10,000 steps today. The load on me is going to be completely different depending on whether those 10,000 steps were all downhill or whether those 10,000 steps were all uphill. You see, my watch still says 10,000 steps. That's great. 10,000 is a lot of steps. But the load on my body is vastly different going uphill compared to going downhill. And so one of the things that we're able to measure is one of the apps I've got on my watch and my phone is metabolic output. Now, what that means is how much energy my body is using to do those 10,000 steps. And obviously, as you get, going uphill is going to use a lot more energy. This is the key to movement and shifting metabolic health, not just the amount, but the load that it puts on you. And so in the research, there's a thing called METS, METS. And all this is to say how much metabolic load did your activity do for you. I'm tracking METS now. And what it says is I go for a bike ride and it says, well, this bike ride was 5 METS. What does that mean? If I'm laying on the couch doing nothing, my metabolic rate, the amount of energy being used in my body, they call it 1 MET, just like that's the baseline. If I go for a walk and the amount of energy is twice as what I would use to lay on the couch, that's called 2 METs. 3 METs is 3 times more energy than to lay on the couch. So when I do a bike ride that's 5 or 6 or 7 METs, what that's saying is I've used 5 or 6 or 7 times more energy than it would to do nothing, basically. So here we're able to say, is my 10,000 steps uphill or downhill? Downhill might be 2 METs, I'm not really using much energy. I'm still doing a lot of steps, but it's all downhill. Uphill might be 5 METs, okay? And so I'm using a lot more energy. This is important because it's not just the amount of activity we have, but the intensity that it puts our body under. And so using this app, and I'll put a link in there. The app's just called Zones. It's a free app. You can pay a few dollars to get a few more analytics, but essentially it's a free app just called Zones. It's on the watch. It's on the Apple phone. Don't know about Android because I don't use it. So check it out and let me know if you use Android. But what it says is like how many METs was this bike ride? And so I can say, well, the bike ride was, I can't see, it's on my phone and I'm recording through now, but the bike ride was say 5.5 METs, 5.5 times more energy than it would take me to lie on the couch. And it went for 30 minutes. Okay. So what I'm able to say is like how many, what we call MET minutes did that bike ride take up? It's 5.7 times 30. And so we're looking at somewhere like 150, 180 MET minutes for a day. The reason that that's important is if we can get consistency with the amount of metabolic work we're doing as we move, as we exercise, as we get out there, then we're going to get more consistency with how our body burns and processes sugars and energies and all these things. And this is where I was starting to get into metabolic health. It's not just health, it's like what's actually happening inside of me. For me to get healthy and to achieve the goals that I want to achieve, firstly as Project 21 and in 2021, but also going forward over the next 5 or 10 or 20 years, I've got to understand, how does my body consume energy? Leanne and I have very different body types. Her metabolism is much, much faster than mine. And so I'm not tracking her mets with a ride at the moment. That's up to her. But it would be that if we did the exact same ride, she's probably going to have a much bigger metabolic load than I will, just because we're different. Okay. And so this is where it becomes personal. This is where me reaching my goals is about saying, well, how do I want to get going forwards? There's a lot of talk there. There's a lot of jargon. Part of the take-home message, if you want to start tracking that stuff, get the app Zones. It's a free one. But part of what I want you to think about as we go into movement month, which is February, is to say, not just how much movement are you doing, but how intense is it for you? Is it raising your heart rate? Is it making you sweat? Or is it just activity moving around all day? Still good, but really, really different. So movement month is about pushing the envelope in through here and seeing what changes. I feel great for the rides we've been doing. We're going to push it up a little bit more, go for a little bit longer and a little bit more intense, and see what changes. So far, it's been really, really great. February's movement month. Let's see, we're about 11 or 12 minutes. There's the other thing I want to talk about. I was going to talk about two things. I think I'll add one of these in here, and we'll see how we go for time. There's always plenty to share, I guess, isn't there? If you can see me and hear me, by the way, flick me a little message. I'm not getting any messages that we're live, so I hope we are. If we're not, we'll get it out there somehow. The second thing is starting Monday this week, which was 2 days ago, the 8th of Feb, today's the 10th, I launched into my first 21-day fast. So my year is planned out. I don't have my planner here, but my year is planned out. No, it's not on my desk. It's planned out to do a whole range of things. We've got holidays that we've sort of earmarked, and we've got different things that I'm doing for work earmarked, but we've also I've earmarked 6 different 21-day fasts. And so what this means is that 6 times this year, I'm going to be doing a fast of something to see what impact it has on my body. At times, I'll be fasting sugar. I'll be fasting cooked foods at times, different things like that. This fast kicked off 2 days ago, and this is a portion control fast. So I'm not drastically changing, to get into this, I'm not drastically changing what I'm eating. What we eat is nothing processed, everything fresh produced, everything fresh cooked at home. We'll eat out every so often, but we eat really, really well, really cleanly. But what I'm looking at is portion control. I like my food. I'll often have a big bowl of salad or a big piece of chicken or something like that. But for this month, for this 3 weeks, 21-day fast is all about portion control. And so that's just making sure there's less on my plate. And what I've noticed is even eating less just in the last 2 days, I'm not hungry at all. And last night we had a bigger meal than we probably should have. And I felt heavy, even though it was kind of the normal meal we'd eat. Leanne said she felt the same. You know, we're trying to bring it down a little bit just to be controlling portions, not necessarily what's in the food, but just how much of it there is. The truth is we eat, as a society, we eat so much. We're grazing all the time, so much going into us, even when we're not hungry. Our food intake is more out of habit than it is out of hunger. And so we're trying to shift that around a little bit and see what happens. I'm also doing, and I have been for this whole year, I'm doing a lot of intermittent fasting. And so this is where I'll actually plan, again, there's an app that I use for this. It's a free app called Simple. I'll pop the details in the comments somewhere. But essentially what it does is it tracks how much water I drink in a day. It tracks what food I eat and where. And I have to program it in. It's a little bit sometimes laborious. But essentially what I'm looking at is a 6 to 8 hour eating window each day, and that's all. So that means anywhere between 16 and 18 hours in a day, I'm not eating, I'm fasting. I'm drinking plenty of water and herbal teas and the odd cup of black coffee, but essentially I'm fasting. And so what we're doing is actually getting my system to not just consume energy through what I'm eating all the time, but to look inside and say, where is the excess energy stored that we can use up to get things going? I've been doing that for most of this year, and the truth be told, it's been pretty easy. So generally what it looks like is I'll eat an evening meal. We'll eat that sometimes around 7, 8 o'clock, sometimes a little bit later if work gets busy. And then I won't eat again for the evening. I won't eat breakfast. I'll just drink water or herbal tea. I generally won't eat an early lunch. I won't eat until maybe 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock. And then I'm generally not that hungry. One of the myths I want to bust is fat is eating fat makes you fat. It's not true. Come to that. Bottom line is intermittent fasting. Something else that we can talk about and chat about that is really beneficial. I think it's going to be beneficial for a lot of people. It's a way to control blood sugar. It's a way to change weight. It's a way to change hormones. It's a way to sleep better. Essentially, it shifts metabolic health. There's heaps we could talk about intermittent fasting, but the two things I'm doing at the moment, aside from moving a lot more and measuring metabolic output, I just talked about that, is a 21-day fast of portion control and intermittent fasting most of the time, most days, anywhere between 16 and 18 hours a day. Sounds like heaps if you've never done it. I wouldn't recommend starting that way. If you want to know more about intermittent fasting, let's have a conversation. Post me some questions. I'm happy to start the ball rolling. If it's something you want to get into and understand more about, don't just jump in blindly. Do some research. Ask me some questions. Let's plot it out a little bit as to what might work best for you. 17 minutes on my clock for this live. I think that's probably about the time to cap it. Now, next time I want to talk about biofeedback and what that means. How do we track things? How do we measure things? How do we know it's changing? Jumping on the scales is one way, weight scales, but it's not the only way. There's plenty of different ways. And so how do we measure things? How do we know what's working? I'll talk about that next time, I think. We are going to camp it there. If there's anything that you would like to know more about, feel free to leave me a comment. This is now all going through the Facebook group, not the Facebook page. I made a mistake in setting that up. So if you're seeing this, you're part of the Facebook group. It's called a private group, only because it's not open for everybody, but it really is. Essentially, people just have to ask to join. If you've got friends who you want to join this journey to learn a little bit, they just got a request to join. You can tag people, you can send people across the Project 21 through the link that you joined in on, and I'll let them in the group. There's no real rules except for we just want to keep everything upbeat, positive, and beneficial, edifying for people. Anyway, that's where we're going to leave it for today, Project 21. I hope it's been beneficial. We talked about metabolic rate in terms of increasing not just the amount of activity, but the metabolic rate with that. We talked about MET minutes and those things. I talked about zones. It was a way to track your MET minutes and track your heart rate and a few different things. Really handy if you've got a way. I use an Apple Watch now. We talked about 21-day fast of portion control, and we talked about intermittent fasting. There's a bunch in there today. If you've got questions, as I've said over and over, feel free to fire them my way. I would love to hear and have a conversation about all of these things. Until next time, Wednesdays at 1, that's where we'll be back next Wednesday. There may be other things in between, including Mythbuster Monday. If you've got any myths you want me to address, find me a short message in this group, and I'd love to talk about it. Anyway, everybody, take care, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.